In today's session, I'm going to discuss 30 very important questions and answers from the poem A Doctor's Journal Entry for August 6, 1945. Do check the pinned comment section for the line-by-line explanation of this poem. This is extract number 1. The extract is there on the screen. And this is the first question. How is the morning described in the extract? In what mood was the narrator? In the first question, I have 2 subparts. So naturally, I'm going to make 2 paragraphs. Always change paragraphs for the subparts. A very important tip for each and every one of you. How is the morning described in the extract? The morning is described by the doctor as calm, beautiful and warm. Textual reference, calm, beautiful, warm. All these 3 points must be there in your answer. It is a fine, mild weathered morning characterized by serenity. What is the meaning of serenity? Serenity का मतलब है peacefulness, tranquility. Calm number 1, beautiful number 2 and warm number 3 and you will get full marks. In what mood was the narrator? The narrator was in a relaxed mood. To the point brief answers. Mood क्या था? Doctor का relaxed. He was still feeling sleepy, another mood, and lazy, sprawling half-clad and gazing at the shimmering leaves and shadows. He was relaxing. He was not in a hurry. So the morning, description of the morning and description of the mood of the narrator. To the point, brief, specific answers including all the key points and expressions. Dear students, let us now read question number 2. What startled the narrator? What did he think of it? Suddenly, there was a blinding flash of light, soon followed by another like it. 2 flashes, 2 consecutive flashes. The narrator was thus startled. The narrator was thus surprised, shocked and taken aback. Achanak kya hua? What did he think of it? He saw the old stone lantern brightly lit. He wondered. This is his thought process. He was still in doubt. He was curious to find out what was this all about. He wondered if the flashes were magnesium flares seen during a war. He considered it to be strange. Write like this and you will get full marks. As I am reading out the answers to you, I am also underlining the key words and expressions. Question number 3 now. What was the impact? You will have to focus on the impact of the explosion on the place and the people. The roof and the walls of the building collapsed. Impact of the explosion on the place. Number 1. The roof and the walls of the building collapsed. Number 2. Timber and debris were scattered and dust swirled. Number 3. The general condition of devastation. So this is number 3. There was devastation, destruction all around, affected the individuals. तो पहले मैंने प्लेस के ऊपर जो इम्पैक्ट था वो डिस्क्राइब किया है और अभी मैं पीपल के ऊपर जो इम्पैक्ट था एक्सप्लोजन का वो डिस्कस कर रही हूं. द जनरल कंडीशन ऑफ डिवास्टेशन. तो प्लेस में देयर वाज जनरल डिस्ट्रक्शन ऑल अराउंड, लॉस ऑफ प्रॉपर्टी एंड नाउ व्हाट वाज द कंडीशन, व्हाट वाज द इम्पैक्ट ऑन द पीपल? Devastation also affected the individuals first physically and then mentally. Very important point. Physically devastated and mentally also devastated. Use these terms and expressions in your answer. The narrator saw people walking like shadows. इंसान इंसान नहीं रहे. They were just walking like shadows, ghosts and scarecrows. They lacked vitality. They lacked the energy, the liveliness. Their arms were stretched and their shoulders were dangling. Physical deformity. This was the impact on the place as well as impact on the people. An atmosphere of fear, panic, horror and great destruction was created due to the explosion. How much did the narrator personally suffer in the explosion? The doctor found himself thrown into the garden, and his drawers and undershirt he had been wearing were gone, disappeared. He was ripped of his shelter and clothes. Shelter bhi nahi tha, clothes bhi nahi rahe. His thigh was mangled, physical injury. He was bleeding and severely wounded. He was wondering what had really happened to him. He was surprised. He was taken aback. He was wondering. कुछ ठीक से समझ नहीं आ रहा था डॉक्टर को. He was a helpless victim and he was alarmed, looking for his wife. The artery in his neck started bleeding and he was scared for his life and panic-stricken for his wife. In this way, he personally suffered in the explosion. Mental agony, physical agony, सब कुछ था after the explosion. Again, this is a compact answer. वर्कबुक में इतने लाइंस नहीं दिया गया है, इसीलिए depending on your handwriting, depending on the question, you will have to frame the answer. The length is going to vary, so don't worry about the lines given in the workbook. Some questions need more lines, more sentences, and some are really brief. Now, 5. Give the meaning of the morning stretched calm, beautiful and warm. The first line. The poem opens on a note of serenity and tranquility, peacefulness. Learn these two terms. And the narrator describes a calm and mild weather morning. The morning symbolizes a new beginning. The symbolic significance of morning क्या है? A new beginning filled with new possibilities. एक नया दिन, नया शुरुआत. New hope. Ironically, the image of the fine morning suddenly changes into a day of devastation and pitiable scenes of human suffering. So herein lies the irony. When you are asked to write about the morning, the meaning of the morning, you will also have to highlight the ironic significance of the expression of the morning. पहले तो वो जो सुबह था वो बहुत सुंदर शांत एक मॉर्निंग था एंड देन आयरॉनिकली सब कुछ चेंज हो गया और कुछ ही समय बाद क्या हुआ देयर वाज डिस्ट्रक्शन डिवास्टेशन ऑल अराउंड अ स्ट्रॉन्ग फ्लैश देन अनदर startled me कौन है the word me refers to the narrator who is a Haibakusha. Now if you have watched the line-by-line explanation video, I'm sure you know what is Haibakusha, a victim, a survivor. The doctor is shocked and here the narrator is the Haibakusha. The doctor is shocked to see two consecutive एक के बाद एक दो blinding flashes of light. He is still unaware of the dropping of little bomb on Hiroshima on August 6, 1945. He was yet to realize the gravity, the seriousness of the situation, the magnitude of the attack. He was simply taken aback. He was still unaware of what was happening around him. So this is extract number 1 and now extract number 2 is on the screen. Just have a look and these are the questions. Quickly, come on. What made the blood gush out? The doctor's blood gushed out profusely from the artery in his neck. Ye tha reason. This was the physical impact of the dropping of the atomic bomb on the victims. Here, the fatally wounded victim is the narrator. There was perhaps a deep cut in his jugular vein in the neck. And this jugular vein transports the blood from the brain to the various parts and organs of the body. After this, why was the narrator panic-stricken? Why was the narrator panic-stricken? The doctor being a medical man, how can we forget this? He was a medical man, a doctor, was aware of the seriousness of his condition. वो खुद बहुत बुरी तरह से आहत थे. He was scared for his life. He was panic-stricken for his life. He called out panic-stricken to his wife. However, he was panic-stricken for the welfare and safety of his wife. Also, he was a caring husband. वो खुद seriously injured थे, मगर फिर भी उनको योको-सान के बारे में बहुत चिंता था, क्योंकि उन्हें योको-सान दिख नहीं रही थी. And therefore, he was panic-stricken for his own life and perhaps for Yoko-san also. I have mentioned both the reasons. What in the extract shows that Yoko-san was badly injured. Just like the doctor, Yoko-san was also badly injured. Yoko-san emerged pale, bloodstained, frightened from the poem. She was holding her elbow, weak and covered in blood. This shows that Yoko-san was badly injured. Understood? Now, what did the narrator tell his wife consoling her? क्या कहा था उन्होंने? The doctor assured her, assurance. चिंता मत करो. The doctor assured his wife that they would be fine. Very important, we will be fine. He also suggested that they must get out of the house immediately. They must go to the hospital. And what does this say about the narrator, the doctor? Character sketch is very important. The doctor's presence of mind, his mental strength are evident here. He also cares. He's a caring husband for his wife and is concerned about her. Character sketch. Thus, he consoles her and does not express his anxiety and pain. वो खुद आहत थे, वो खुद बहुत पेन में थे, मगर उन्होंने ये जाहिर नहीं किया और उन्होंने अपने वाइफ को कंसोल किया, एश्योर किया, सब कुछ ठीक हो जाएगा. Now the next one, question number 4. Describe the object they found on the street. The doctor and Yoko-san stumbled and tripped over something on the street. This object was a head. Very important. It belonged to a dead man. A gate had crushed him. A man who died due to a gate crashing upon him. And what was the reaction of the narrator? Reaction kya tha after finding the object? This is a question. The doctor gasped out after finding the object. Gasped. Since he tripped over it, he also said, "Excuse me, please excuse me." There they stood afraid. The narrator was afraid. The wife was also afraid. So gasped, excuse me, and afraid. The reaction. By giving 2 examples, write down 2 examples. State how an atmosphere of fear was created by the explosion in the minds of the narrator and his wife. Atmosphere of fear. An atmosphere of fear, panic, horror is created by giving the gruesome details of the explosion and its aftermath. Aftermath का क्या मतलब है? Consequences. A house standing before the narrator and his wife tilted, swayed, toppled and crashed. They were naturally scared, frightened. Their own house was destroyed a little while ago. 1 मिनट पहले अपना जो घर है वो था और 1 मिनट बाद, कुछ ही सेकंड्स बाद शायद वो घर नहीं था. So this was really scary. Again the suddenness, इतनी जल्दी, suddenly जो ये हुआ, the suddenness of the 2 consecutive blinding flashes of light and their own wounded bodies filled them with fear. वो खुद डॉक्टर Yoko-san वो खुद आहत थे. They were very, very badly injured. They were covered in blood and were scared for their life. तो ये reasons enough है to make anybody filled with fear and anxiety. And in this way, I have given 2 examples. Collapse of house, and then this is number 1, and then number 2, suddenness of the 2 consecutive blinding flashes and their own wounded bodies filled them with fear. They were covered in blood. So these are the 2 examples. After this, again, look at the screen and here is extract number 3. Very quickly. Who was dead? The doctor and his wife, Yoko-san, tripped over an object on the street. It was a head. This head was of a man who was dead. He was another victim of the explosion and he was dead. And what had killed him? A gate had crushed him to death. See, this length, this answer is so brief. So depending on the question, particular question, the length of your answer is going to depend. So don't panic regarding the length. Write to the point brief answers including all the keywords and expressions. Describe the strange things that happened as stated in the extract. The extract is there on the screen and you will have to simply describe it. Firstly, a dead man's head was lying on the street and indeed a very strange thing to have happened. Secondly, kya hua? A house standing before the doctor and his wife tilted, swayed, toppled and crashed. Very strange indeed. The collapsed house caught fire and the fire spread because it was being blown around by the wind. These were the strange things that happened as stated in the extract. Very simple answer. Just explain the extract. Immediately after the extract, what two decisions? Again, focus on two decisions taken by the narrator. Doctor ne kya decide kiya? The doctor decided, number one, to go to the hospital for aid and also to help his staff. Number one. And then he also decided that Yoko-san must go on ahead alone. Immediately after the extract, the narrator took these two decisions. Why couldn't the narrator and his staff aid his staff at the hospital? The doctor had to walk some distance to reach the hospital. वो hospital से थोड़े दूर थे. But his thigh was mangled, his right side bled and there was a deep cut in the jugular vein in his neck. The blood loss made him weak. How could he walk to the hospital? Made him weak, he was panting for breath, he felt thirsty and his legs, stiff with dried blood, rebelled. He was unable to walk to the hospital, thus he could not help his staff at the hospital. पहले तो उन्हें पहुंचना है खुद. मगर वो कैसे वहां पे जाएंगे? He is so weak. What physical inconveniences, INCONVE, this is VE, did the narrator suffer after the incidents referred to in the extract? Keep this in mind. After the incidents referred to in the extract, the doctor could not stand any longer and he sat on the ground. He was thirsty, breathless and naked. Although stiff with dried blood, soon rebelled. His body crept behind. The narrator suffered from these physical inconveniences. So, write like this and try not to repeat your points again and again. Another tip. Extract 4 now. Why was the breath of the speaker short? Physically, the doctor was weak and frail. His life force, that is blood, was gushing out of the deep cut in the artery of his neck. So when he started to walk a little towards the hospital, his breath was short. He was exhausted and the physical exertion was beyond endurance. वो ये सहन कर नहीं पा रहे थे. And therefore he was panting, he was gasping for breath, he was breathless because of his physical weakness. But bit by bit, my strength seemed to revive. Considering the post-war history of Japan, what is the symbolism involved in the extract? But bit by bit, the narrator's strength seemed to revive, showing his indomitable spirit, never say die attitude. And this is symbolic of Japan's. This is important, dear students, girls and boys, learn this properly, and is symbolic of Japan's resilience. Again, never say die attitude as a civilization, very important. The dropping of the little boy on Hiroshima and another on Nagasaki virtually wiped off the two cities. However, Japan withstood the calamity, the disaster, and with their hard work and undaunted spirit, indomitable spirit, rose up and gradually rebuilt their shattered cities and their world. This is important. Come on, learn this directly from here, the symbolism. Next, the narrator was conscious that he was naked. Who helped him? And how did the offer help the narrator to have self-confidence? Who helped him? Yes, a soldier, standing silently, gave the towel round his neck to the doctor. Thus, he helped the narrator. A simple answer once again. And how did the offer help the narrator to have self-confidence? Although the narrator was naked, he felt no shame, and this thought disturbed him somewhat. He was ripped of his clothes. Metaphoric meaning क्या है? Ripped off, robbed of his dignity. So the soldier's offer helped the narrator to have his self-confidence. His helpful gesture in the midst of adversity, disaster, instilled in the doctor a ray of hope and a kind of self-belief needed for survival. So there is still human goodness, and I will have to rise up. Maybe I can survive. Self-confidence because of this helpful gesture. Why did he send Yoko-san alone to the hospital? The doctor told his wife Yoko-san to go to the hospital alone because he was so badly wounded and weak that he was slowing them both down. He was concerned. He knew that if Yoko-san stayed back with him, then she might be in danger. Therefore, he was concerned about the safety, the welfare of his wife. And this showed his presence of mind. To realize the significance of medical aid and survival for her. तो Yoko-san survive कर सकती है अगर वो hospital पहुंच जाती है जल्द से जल्द. And Yoko-san भी बहुत injured थी. Therefore, she needed medical aid and she needed to go to the hospital as soon as possible. His presence of mind. And then, how did he try to justify this? He tried to justify this decision by thinking that they were in such a distressful situation that they had no choice. What choice we had? As individuals, they were unable to exercise, EXERCISE, their right to choose. Survival was their priority then. Afterwards, number 4 now. What did the narrator feel when Yoko-san left for the hospital? Explain the symbolism. A dreadful silence, feeling, reaction came over the doctor when Yoko-san left for the hospital. He was lonely, he was speechless. And also add, यहाँ पे add करना है. देखो मैंने यहाँ पे लिख दिया है. His mind ran at high speed, but his body could not cope up with such fatal injuries. Body crept behind. So add this, please. And explain the symbolism. This painful parting symbolizes the mental agony of the victims of the nuclear bombing. The explosion not only caused physical sufferings, but also resulted in mental pain, loneliness, sorrow, separation from loved ones. This is also a symbol for the helplessness of such victims as the narrator. In this way, you must frame your answer. Symbolism and the feeling, the reaction. Describe the appearance of the people whom the narrator saw. The narrator saw shadowy forms of the people who seemed to have been reduced to pale ghosts, scarecrows. Everyone was wordless, dumb, and they were all walking with their arms in front of them. Soon the doctor realized that the burns were so severe that they could not bear to even touch them against anyone else's flesh. Very badly injured. Pitiable condition. Now, extract 5. What does the speaker mean by shadowy forms of people? Why were they looking so? The doctor saw shadow-like appearances of people. Some looked like pale ghosts, the others like scarecrows. Metaphorically, the suddenness of the explosion stunned them, traumatized them so much that they lacked vitality and zest for life. जो liveliness है, जीने के लिए जो एक spirit है, that spirit was lost in these people. They appeared like zombies, ghosts devoid of life force. बस वो चलते जा रहे थे, completely silent and shadow-like appearances. And why were they looking so? Dehumanization. They were looking so because the dropping of the little bomb on Hiroshima resulted in such horrific and gruesome aftermath. Dropping of the little bomb की वजह से ये लोग were reduced, these people were reduced to pale ghosts, shadow-like appearances. These people were victims of the explosion, physically injured and mentally dumbfounded. They were perhaps ripped of their clothes, metaphorically dignity, and turned into shadowy forms, deformed and dehumanized. Human जैसी कोई बात नहीं था. They were like ghosts. एक के बाद एक चलते जा रहे थे. Explain briefly the horrifying effect of the bombing on the people as described in the extract. Again, just explain the extract. The people seem to have been reduced to pale ghosts or scarecrows. None of them was speaking. They were walking with their arms in front of them and a shoulder or a hand dangling loose from their body. The friction on their wounds caused so much pain when the burnt wounds rubbed against each other that they feared to chafe flesh against flesh again. Those who could shuffled in blank parade. They were naked, expressionless and dumb. Such was the horrifying effect of the bombing on the people as described in the extract. ये lengthy होने वाला है, because you will have to describe it. 3 lines में तो ये fit नहीं आने वाला. Come on. Now, question number 3. What caused the pain as the victims of the bombing moved? The friction on their burns caused the pain as the victims of the bombing moved. What is said about the suffering of the narrator as well of his wife in the poem? Again, a lengthy answer. Both of them. What was their condition? The doctor's thigh was mangled. A splinter jutted from it. His right side bled. His cheek was torn and he dislodged a piece of glass. He was unable to understand the situation. Blood gushed out of a deep cut. It's going to be cut, not cup. In the artery in his neck. He was scared for his own life and also for his wife, who was also pale, and for his wife, who was also pale and blood-stained. She was holding her injured elbow. We have discussed this previously. She was holding her injured elbow. Besides the physical suffering, both were mentally traumatized, afraid to see the horrific images of destruction in front of them. The doctor was thirsty, breathless, and so exhausted that he could not walk to the hospital. He had to part from his wife, and the separation was painful. So, in a nutshell, as briefly as I could, I framed this answer. So, this is the answer. Just go through it. The condition of the narrator and his wife. After this, 4. Let's see what is the question. Yes, give the meaning of fear to chafe flesh against flesh again. This expression shows the physical sufferings of the victims of the bombing in Vikram Seth's doctor's journal entry for August 6, 1945. Girls and boys, learn the names of the poets, the authors, and the texts from your syllabus. Write them correctly. The people are so severely wounded and bruised that they fear to endure the pain caused by rubbing of flesh against flesh. The doctor realized that the people were unable to bear or endure this pain. Anyone? Now, shuffled in a blank parade. The expression shuffled in a blank parade is ironical, highlighting the aftermath of the bombing on the people of Hiroshima. Some people were walking to the hospital, naked, dumb, expressionless, too stunned to raise their voice against the morally depraved perpetrators of the attack. ये अटैक हुआ, मगर क्या किसी ने अभी तक कुछ कहा किसी के against? The perpetrators, the criminals who carried out the attack? A parade is a celebration, but ironically here it shows horrors of the nuclear explosion. How does the poet create an atmosphere of fear, panic, horror in the poem? The same answer. Vikram Seth uses graphic visual images. Again, line by line explanation. It's in the pin comment section. I have discussed all the images in detail over there to create an atmosphere of fear, panic and horror in the poem. The gruesome details of the bombing, the consequences, the presentation of the scenes of human suffering and pain intensify this atmosphere of horror, fear and pain. The physical sufferings of the doctor, his wife, as well as the other victims, the head of a dead man, crushed to death, the crashing of a house, the nakedness of the people, the dreadful silence, the image of a woman with a child, both naked, are used by the poet deftly. So, some examples from the text must be there in your answer. And I have mentioned some examples from the text. Extract 6. Who are referred to in the extract? A woman with a child standing in the path of the narrator, both naked, are referred to in the extract. Boys and girls, spelling of referred, learn this properly. Double R. It's not double F. Their nakedness. Now, why does the narrator doubt whether they had come back from the bath? The nakedness, loss of dignity and humiliating condition made the narrator doubt whether they had come back from the bath. So, this was strange. And the suddenness of this image filled him with doubt. Such a painful sight filled the narrator with a sense of loss, and he thought that perhaps they had come back from the bath naked. The poem, and remember one thing, nakedness of the woman, loss of dignity, humiliation, nakedness of the child, loss of innocence, loss of the childhood of the loss of childhood. So, symbolic significance of nakedness, loss of innocence. The poem often refers to the nakedness of the body. Figuratively, besides the bomb explosion, who else is responsible for making them naked of clothes as well as human dignity? How? The perpetrators of the nuclear bombing, men with vested selfish interests, are responsible for the nakedness and loss of human dignity. So, degeneration, moral depravity of the perpetrators of the attack is suggested over here. The whole humanity was deprived of their human nature. It was made bare, raw and was burnt by the senseless fate of history. A section of morally degenerated people made children to lose their innocence. Women, men were humiliated by the powerful people trying to dominate others. So this is the answer. I hope you have read it. Now, silence was common to us all. Explain. The doctor could hear neither a word nor a cry of pain. People were shocked to silence. They were dumbfounded. Sab log chupchap the. This is a symbol of the domination of the weak by the powerful forces. When a man is in deep sorrow, his sensibility becomes numb. कुछ कह नहीं पाता ऐसे एक सिचुएशन में. When a powerful nation destroys common people, nobody says anything. The doctor was silent as he had to bear the painful parting from his wife and also witness the tragedy of human suffering. Silence was common to us all. So this is the significance. After this, again, describe the physical, psychological sufferings shown in the extract. Again, a bit lengthy. The doctor saw another naked man. An old woman lying on the ground had a disfigured face with suffering, but she was also silent and did not complain. Physical suffering. Psychological suffering. Silence was a common feature of all the suffering men and women. All were shocked, psychological, and they had become speechless. They could not cry in pain. They could not cry in spite of their pain. After this, what has appealed to you in the poem? Give 2 examples to justify your opinion. In spite of intense suffering and chaos, this is reason number 1. The goodness in human nature, this is another theme, does not vanish. There is hope for care and concern in the attitude of the doctor who bleeds and is too scared for his life and calls out his wife. मैंने ये डिस्कस किया हुआ है। डॉक्टर खुद इंज्योर्ड थे, मगर वो एक लविंग केयरिंग हस्बैंड भी थे। उन्हें अपनी वाइफ के बारे में चिंता भी था। He thinks of his staff also and also makes his wife to go to the hospital alone for her survival and safety. The soldier who gives the doctor a towel is also kind and helpful. So human goodness, and this has appealed to me. And another one, the symbolism of the doctor trying to revive his strength bit by bit is appealing. This shows what has made Japan one of the world leaders today. Its indomitable spirit, very important, and determination, very important, to rebuild T. It's not T, it's D. To rebuild itself as a civilization. These have appealed to me, and you can also highlight the theme anti-war poem. Here Bikram Seth has highlighted, has exposed the meaninglessness of such wars.